and there's 2 players now sharing the lead.
Well, I'm not sharing, Johnny.
This programme is brought to you by Vitality, sharing a love of the action.
Oh, I am, right.
Ahead of the Six Nations, we've teamed up with Vitality to bring you exclusive access and insight from one of the world's most respected fly halves ever to play the game. In this special content series, which will run across the Six Nations, we hear from Vitality Ambassador Jonny Wilkinson about his memories from his playing days, how he has adapted to life after rugby, and how he has coped during the pandemic. Jonny, a lot has changed since you've retired in the game. A lot's changed since I've retired only 3 years ago. What do you think the biggest changes have been in rugby as you're now watching from afar?
Well, I mean, the ones that really spring to mind are just I could feel a tangible uplift in terms of the physicality, in terms of the pace, in terms of just the intensity of the game and the professional nature of it as I was kind of transitioning out. But with me, it's just the intensity of it. You know, it's becoming ever more. And the important thing with that is that the game doesn't lose its kind of feel and its accessibility and its kind of friendly warmth with it. And I don't think it has, but you can just see, especially with COVID now, with no crowds and everything, you know, that's the bit no one wants to lose, is that kind of down to earth, grounded nature of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you yourself were renowned for big hits. I think I took a couple. I probably didn't even flinch when you hit me, but you were renowned for that, right? You used to go quite high. I actually do remember coming off around the back of the line out and straight at you. I was at Leicester, you were at Newcastle.
Okay,
and you hit me high. You hit me high, and I'm 6'9". So
yeah.
But how are you viewing that? Do you look back on your career and think potentially would have liked to have gone lower?
No, do you know what the thing is that everyone is so competitive, and I don't think, and everyone will probably say the same about themselves, and I'm saying it about me now, is I'm not sure there was anyone more competitive than I was. And it's just it's almost animalistic, that instinct to just conquer, in terms of every hit you have, you want to go into, you want to be the one that comes out of it stronger, you want to kind of dominate. It's what the game's about, those extra yards this way or that way, it matters. If you go backwards or if you go forwards, it can shift the game. And that was in my blood when I was playing, but I totally adhered to the rules and the interpretations. When it became, if you put me in a friendly match and said we're just playing for fun, but it's kind of there, like we used to, you just have that kind of grip touch in training where it was shoulders on, but no this. Now, and when it was that against my own teammates, I never went anywhere near it. I couldn't. I was probably the least aggressive player on the field when we did that kind of thing, and it was that level of just like, this is, everyone's bought into this, these are the rules, this is what we're going to play. And I think that's the danger now in the game. And so if you put today's laws on me when I was younger, I would have spent probably more time I never sort of had a yellow card or a red, or definitely a red, but I of course I would have done for probably the majority of those hits, but those were the laws then, and the interpretation now is different. And the difficult part is I think that people feel that with going lower, you're almost forced to submit to a degree to things like offloads. Do you know what I mean? It's so difficult when you know that you've got to go so low that it's, especially with some of the talent, the guys now, just to lift their hands over you and get rid of the ball. And it used to be the thing in my defense was that I want to hit you backwards and I want to trap you with the ball. Do you know what I mean? Because it was like, stop the game right there and then dominate. And now I think it's difficult because guys are going to have to work out how they can still, I guess, have a big impact on the game through defense without having that channel to really just fly in, which can get a bit reckless. And we've seen that most of the red cards and yellow cards that come about is all when that clarity goes and it becomes, like I said, that animalistic win at all costs, just go in there, and it's aggression speaking instead of that composed, deliberate, sort of physicality. And I think the team that grabs that first is going to be the most efficient and effective, and they're going to be the ones that take the game ahead.
So, Jonny, when we talk about rugby, or when I listen to you talk about rugby, you can hear how much joy you get talking about it, and obviously being one of the best who've ever done it. So as we retire from the game, we try and find stuff that fulfills us, right? And stuff that kind of can give us the excitement that we had as players. Have you found anything in your life that can kind of match that?
Yeah,
The experiences that we had. I can't even imagine what it was like to win a World Cup, but even I find it hard to feel the same.
Yeah, there is. There's something way bigger for me, and that's something that's bigger is that understanding through the World Cup, you know, you're doing it for the team, but ultimately underneath that, you're doing it for you. It's part of your goal. It's one of your goals to be there and achieve and whatever. And then you know that very closely after that, it follows that you're doing it for the team, and then after that, it follows that you're doing it, you know, for the nation. Obviously, within that, you've got your family and your friends that come a lot higher up, but with the general public. But you don't actually recognize what that means until you speak to some, and people are telling you stories about where they were on that morning back here, or were those who was at the game, and all these things, and it's brilliant. But a more amazing feeling than just achieving a goal is connecting to people. Everyone is here to serve each other, and feeling that on a daily basis, instead of it being when you're a player, you know, this sense of importance about your teammates and you, compared to, oh God, here comes this guy here, do you know what I mean? Or here's this, oh, she's bothering me, or, you know, so much of that goes on, instead of this true understanding that there is no kind of superiority or inferiority or hierarchy to importance. You know, there's no such thing as, you know, you look at a child who's 2 years old, and when you're talking to a child who's 2 years old, you get caught in this idea of, oh, it's just a 2-year-old kid. What do they know? If you stop and talk, you realize you're learning way more from a 2-year-old than you ever are from anyone else. And it's just that importance that comes with, I've been through this and I know this, and you let go of that. And it's like, my God, everything is here to reveal something, instead of just, oh, it's a big game and this one's worth playing. You know, I don't want to be played for the second team. Do you know what I mean? I want to play for the first team. And then suddenly, what about just saying, no, just play with the second team, and suddenly give it everything, and suddenly you realize that was an amazing opportunity. You know, it's just that's been the journey for me, and that's been the revelation that rugby game is going on everywhere. You know, and I'm still the rugby player, but I'm just playing a bigger game.
Yeah, because listening to you speak, and I've heard you speak on other podcasts and read stuff that you've done, you're obviously going through personal development stuff, which you've always done, which we're all doing. Yours seems very deep rooted. It sounds absolutely amazing, because whenever you think of Jonny Wilkinson, or if I spoke to my parents and say I'm speaking to Jonny Wilkinson, the association straight away is the drop goal, the World Cup final. That's it.
Yeah.
How have you struggled to deal with that people just see that's you, and that is only you? Because there is obviously so much more to you than that one instance, which was huge for rugby. I think it changed the face of the game, obviously in England as well. But it's a little bit of a burden for you as well, that?
Yeah, it's kind of, it doesn't really affect me. It used to, but it doesn't really affect me now, because I think that it's the difference between really meeting something and thinking about it. When I don't meet people and they think about me, that's maybe what they'll come up with. But when they really meet me, that's all that needs to happen, in terms of, and that's kind of how important it is to get hold of that, just to work on that being, because that's what people meet when they meet you. You can say whatever you like, but it's that energy that you give off, that you are. And it's a bit like I was talking about this thing about life. I can think about what a great life looks like, but it's nothing to do with a great life. You experience, you meet it. You've got to go and meet it. And that's what I was talking about before, is just when you meet people, if you're willing to shed all the stuff and just really meet them. And that's what I ultimately I love doing, is when I meet people, I just meet them. I'm no longer playing that role. I used to play that role. I didn't used to play it. I used to think that was exactly who I was. I was this important guy. And part of being important, and that image I wanted, was to try and be humble. So I'd be a really important guy in my own head, being even more important because of how modest I was being. It's just a mess. Instead of just stripping right down and just going, how you doing? And you find out you ask way more questions about someone else than they ask about you in the World Cup. They ask you about the World Cup and a drop goal, and you kind of go, yeah, you finished. And then you find out you're way more interested in them. I think that's, that side of things has been interesting, because I bought into it big style. And in fact, actually, I'd have told you back in the day that was the thing that when you're waiting for the kickoff and you stood at the back of the field, that was the thing that you believed gave you strength, was being able to stand there and go, I'm more important than you. I've done more. I deserve this more. I've trained harder. I've suffered more. All that stuff. But when the whistle goes, everyone gets equalised. Everyone just loses all that and just gets on with it.
I'll tell you what would have been a travesty, Jonny, if you walked away completely from the game. You haven't, which is great for all of us. And the fact that you're mentoring some of the England lads as well. I know you've done some stuff with Owen and George Ford as well. And there was talk, I read something that you did some stuff with Danny Cipriani, is that right?
Yeah, I've sort of throughout since about 2014, just with all the guys that were in the squad, I kind of just have always offered a hand to say, if you fancy it, just keep in touch. So, you know, a lot of those guys who have been in and around the squad, George, Owen, Marcus Smith, Danny Cipriani, and other guys now coming into that fold as well who are interested in it. And it's just, there's no expectations or kind of requirements or conditions on my behalf. It's really just a case of, look, if you're interested in exploring this potential with me, then, you know, if it arises in you to feel like, actually, I'm really interested, I want to do that, give me a ring and we'll set something up. If it's 2 years and then it arises in you, then after 2 years, we'll do it then. It doesn't need to be weekly. It's just, you know, being on the side of, you know, at their speed of their journey of what they want. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, you know, some guys you speak to and you have a great session and you don't really see them again, but you never know, you know, maybe in 10 years time, I've spoken to a few guys who have finished the game now. I speak to some of those guys way more than I do some of the guys who are still playing.
Obviously, we can't go back in time and hindsight, but you look at all the best athletes around the world. You look at, you know, LeBron James. You look at all the footballers who build a profile away from the pitch. How do you think you would have dealt with the added pressure of social media? Would you have been on there, do you think? Would you have tried to build a brand around that as well, which lads are now encouraged to do? Because it must be really difficult to migrate through this added layer.
Incredibly difficult, I imagine. I mean, I was on it because like you said, you almost feel like you should be. At the end of my career in Toulon, for about 3 years or whatever it was, but I was never a big sort of feature on it. But it's interesting. It's like we talk about this liberating potential, is that most of that potential is given away to things on the outside. How things turn out, do I win, do I lose, did I do well, did I do badly, and then in an equal sense to what people think of you. And those two things, if they're allowed, can completely control your own life for you. And when they do, when you look at it, if how things turn out, which is never fully in our control, and what people think of us, which is definitely not fully in our control, and nor should it ever be, if those two things are true, that controls you, then it means you don't get to feel how you choose to feel on the inside, which means your performance doesn't belong to you, which means that your leadership, you're never leading, you're just being led. You're being led by what's happening around you. And so they're big questions to sort of say, look, in terms of that, it's not about not being on there. It's about having an inner kind of grounding that is far stronger than the external, so that you get to lead somewhere. Otherwise, people lead for you, and it seems silly to say it, but you wake up and you read something on social media and it puts you in a bad mood. You turn up at the club in a bad mood and you start shouting at people, treating them through that bad mood. Now, whoever wrote that comment on social media has just owned your day for you and has owned your relationships. Now, there comes a question we just have to ask, you know, where does my power exist and who holds it? Is it people I've never met before and things that I can't control, or is it in me? And if it comes to the decision it's in me, then it's worth undertaking that journey to go uncover it.
Let's pretend everything's normal. Lions tour's up and running. They're heading to South Africa. There's fans. We know that this isn't going to happen, but we know potentially it will happen in some shape or form. The fly half position, there's a lot of talk about who should fill that number 10 jersey. As someone with credentials, I should say, who would you pick at 10, Jonny?
Yeah, you're right. It's an amazing question, and what a sort of embarrassment of Rich is in that space at the moment, because, you know, even within England, you've got George and Owen kind of still knocking around that space, and guys have been leading and doing well. You've got historically, in terms of real consistency over the last few, 5 years or whatever, you've got the likes of Johnny Sexton in there for sure. Has a real quality. You saw Owen and Johnny Sexton in the previous Lions tour doing what they did to that Lions team against a team like New Zealand in the form they're in. I mean, that's hard to question those kind of credentials. Dan Biggar and then Finn Russell, you're like, geez, this is Finn Russell and those guys they're game winners, and they're probably some of the most exciting talent out there, not just to fly half, but in the world of rugby. So yeah, it's a big one. And we were speaking to Gregor before just about the coach's choice. So much of it depends, and this is where I come into this, in just what sort of team he wants. Playing against South Africa, what the game plan is going to be, how they see South Africa, who are a phenomenal team right now. It's funny how the Lions always tend to end up playing against the World Cup winners, isn't it? It kind of goes that way, and they're going to take on the World Cup winners, who are an outstanding team. But what kind of game plan do you want? And that'll determine what sort of 10 you want.
If you had to pick one though, Jonny, come on, I'll put you on the spot. If you were picking a 10, now I think I know who you're going to go for, because you kind of said,
on the basis that I work with a couple of them, you're putting me in a really interesting position here. But let's say I'm not allowed to pick an English player. Okay, then you make
I like that. I like that. Let's do that.
It's a good one, because I think younger me would have gone, younger me would go straight for Johnny Sexton, just because he looks like the sort of guy you just know exactly what you're getting, in terms of like, your guy's got it, he's in control, and he seems to be able to just wear the world on his shoulders. Middle career me, maybe more Dan Biggar, just he's got some of that, he's got some of the Finn Russell side, and he's got some, he's just got a real interesting energy about him as well. Latter style me, when I was in that kind of, only a few games left of the career, I want to go out on a high, is more the Finn Russell choice. Do you know what I mean? Someone in there that you sort of feel like, he could ignite that Lions flair of everyone around him, just sort of goes, oh, okay, we're doing this, are we? Let's do it. So yeah, I think a bit of everything, but if I go to South Africa, I would probably have a mix of the two. So it'd probably be, I don't know. Do you know what? I genuinely don't.
Last question, Jonny. Very last question. So you're working in the England camp, you're watching a lot of rugby, play fly half at the very highest level, the best who've ever done it. There's a lot of talk around Joe Simmonds at Exeter, captain of the team, young lad, double winner. What does a guy like him need to do to break through into that England team? We all know that Owen and George are fantastic players, and they're holding the fort, and it works really well, clearly. Look what England have done in recent years. But for someone like Joe Simmonds, what does he need to do to break through and get up to the next level?
I think two ways I would put this. One is that the most amazing players for me in the game, the ones that I find stand out, the ones that when you see their face or you hear their name, something comes to your mind immediately. Just something which says, this comes to my mind because they are it. Whether it be managing the game, whether it be absolute unstoppable kind of creativity, whether it's the rock solid nature of their dependability, whatever it is, or their kind of ability to come through at the end of games, just something comes up. That's a key thing to have. Do you know what I mean? I wanted to try and be that in every area, was my desire. I wanted to be the guy that you thought of as being able to pass and do this or whatever. But ultimately, when you find a team that needs something from you, you'll go to those things a bit more. But whatever it is, you want to be the embodiment of what that means to someone. So when your name comes out, that's what people think of. And the second thing adjoined to that is, how does that come about? Is that you realize that working on someone else works for no one. Working on yourself works for everyone. And so what I mean by that is what does the coach need from me? I need to go and show him that I'm doing this and show him that I'm doing that. It doesn't work. You're working on someone else. The most inspiring thing for a coach or anyone is to see someone fully engaged in their element and looking like they're in absolute joy. That joyfulness isn't a smile. It's a deep engagement in what they're doing. And it's inspiring. And they're not doing it to show you that. When you start trying to inspire someone, it's the least inspiring thing you can do. But when you get busy following your passion, engaging deeply in what you're doing, it's inspiring for everyone. And coaches want to be inspired. I don't think they want to be, in this day and age, I think rugby is looking for that inspirational hit. It's not looking for that dependable or tick in a box. It's looking for that kind of, oh my God, this is the gateway to something that other teams haven't seen before and won't be able to handle. And that's what it is. It's that deep ability to read the game, play at the last minute, feel it, not go in there with a game plan and tick it off and manage your way through the game as I did for quite a few years, but actually go in there with all that talent and just say, yeah, when the moment comes, I'll unleash whatever it requires. And that's that's something which takes huge confidence, but it also takes the guts and courage to say, this journey of my career is about me. So when it finishes, if I don't play for England, I'll look back and it was incredible. Instead of playing for England 50 times and looking back and being like, I never really went for it. And for someone like that, just play your career your way and understand that if you get to play one more game, make it one that you'll sign off on, and do that for the rest of your career, and things will unfold.
Jonny, absolutely class, mate. Gentlemen, as always, absolutely loved it as well. Thank you.
Good on you.
Don't think you'll be getting many drop goals with your new boots, Jonny.